The phone rings at 9:47 p.m. Not 9:45. Not 9:50. Always 9:47. I'm sitting on my apartment couch with a mug of chamomile tea going cold in my hands, laptop open to a half-finished grant proposal that's due tomorrow. And I don't even look at the screen anymore when it lights up. I just reach for it, muscle memory guiding my thumb to the green button, and I bring it to my ear with the same resignation you'd use to answer a bill collector. Hello? Sweetheart. My mother's voice, warm and familiar, with that slight tremor she gets when she's trying to sound casual about something that isn't casual at all. How are you? I'm fine, Mum. I set the tea down, lean back into the cushions. Through my fourth-floor window, I can see the lights of downtown Minneapolis flickering like distant stars, so the skyline a jagged silhouette against the October sky. Just working on, are you alone? There it is, the question that's been coming every single night for the past 3 months. The question that started innocuously enough, a parent's concern for their daughter living alone in the city, but has slowly, steadily, inexorably become something else. Something I can't quite name, but can feel in my bones like the change in air pressure before a storm. Yes, I say, because I am. Because my roommate Sarah moved out 6 weeks ago to live with her boyfriend, and I haven't found a replacement yet. And most nights I sit here in this apartment that feels too big and too quiet, working or reading or watching the same comfort shows I've seen a dozen times. Alone, except for the occasional siren wailing past on Hennepin Avenue. Silence. Then a click. They've hung up. I stare at the phone in my hand, the screen already going dark, and I feel that familiar cocktail of emotions rising in my chest. Confusion, frustration, a thread of worry that I try to ignore because acknowledging it feels like giving power to something I don't understand. My parents, rational, loving, slightly overbearing, but generally normal people, have been doing this for 93 days. I've counted. Every night at 9:47 p.m. they call. Every night they ask if I'm alone. And every single time I say yes, they hang up within seconds. But if I say no, if I tell them Sarah's here, or my friend Marcus stopped by, or I'm at a coffee shop, surrounded by strangers with laptops and expensive headphones, then they want details. Who am I with? What are their names? How long have I known them? Where exactly am I located? What's the address? Can I send them my live location? Will I keep my phone on? Do I promise not to go anywhere without telling them? The interrogation lasts until I'm exhausted. Until I've answered every question twice. Until my mother's voice finally loses that edge of barely contained panic, and my father, who usually stays silent on these calls, listening in the background like a sentinel, finally speaks up to say, "Okay, sweetheart, you be careful. We love you." I've tried asking them what this is about. I've tried multiple times, actually. Different approaches, different tones. Curious, concerned, frustrated, angry. I've texted them during the day when the nighttime weirdness feels less oppressive. Sent long messages asking if something happened, if they're okay, if there's something I should know. Their responses are always the same. "We just worry about you, honey. That's all. Parents worry." But this isn't normal worry. Normal worry is calling to check in once a week. Maybe asking me to text when I get home late, making me promise to lock my doors. Normal worry doesn't require a nightly phone call at the exact same minute. doesn't hinge on a single yes or no question, doesn't result in an immediate hang-up when you hear the answer you apparently don't want to hear. I've Googled it, of course. Spent hours down rabbit holes of Reddit threads and psychology articles, trying to find someone else whose parents exhibited this exact behavior. The closest I came was a forum post about parents with OCD who had compulsive rituals so around their children's safety, but even that didn't quite match. Those parents wanted reassurance. They wanted their children to repeat specific phrases, perform specific actions. They wanted to hear "I'm safe" in a particular way. My parents don't want reassurance when I'm alone. They want me not to be alone. And when I am, which is most nights, because I'm 28 years old with a full-time job at a non-profit and a relatively quiet social life, they just disconnect. Like they can't bear to stay on the line with me. Like being alone is somehow the wrong answer, the dangerous answer, the answer that makes communication impossible. I set my phone face down on the coffee table and try to return to the grant proposal. But the words blur together. My mind keeps circling back to the question I've been avoiding for weeks now. The question that sits in my chest like a stone. What are they so afraid of? The ritual started in July. I remember because it was right after the 4th, and I'd spent the holiday weekend at home in Duluth with them, sitting on their deck overlooking Lake Superior, eating my mother's potato salad and watching my father set off fireworks that were probably not entirely legal. It was a good weekend. Normal. My parents seemed fine. Maybe a little quieter than usual. Maybe my mother held me a little tighter when I left. But nothing alarming. I drove back to Minneapolis on July the 5th, a Sunday. And that night at 9:47 p.m., my phone rang. I remember thinking it was odd that they were calling so late. They're early-to-bed types, usually in their pajamas by 9 o'clock, reading or watching reruns of British mysteries before falling asleep by 10:30. But I answered cheerfully enough, figuring maybe they'd forgotten to tell me something. Or my mother wanted to give me a recipe, or any of the 100 small reasons parents call their adult children. "Hi, Mom." "Sweetheart, hi, how was the drive back?" "Easy, no traffic, and I'm home just unpacked." "That's good, honey, that's good." A pause, then almost casual. "Are you alone?" I laughed. "Yeah. Sarah's at Ryan's place. Why?" The silence that followed wasn't long, maybe 3 seconds, but it felt dense, heavy with something unspoken. "Okay, well, you make sure to lock your doors, all right? And keep your phone charged." "Always do, Mom." "Good, that's good. We love you, sweetheart." "Love you too." She hung up, and I thought nothing of it. Mothers worry. It's what they do. My mother, in particular, has always had a slightly anxious temperament. The kind of person who calls to check if you made it home safe, even if you're just driving across town. This seemed like more of the same. But then the next night, 9:47 p.m., the phone rang again. And the night after that. And the night after that. By the end of the first week, I started recognizing the pattern. By the end of the second week, I mentioned it to Sarah, who found it kind of weird but also kind of sweet. By the end of the first month, I was keeping my phone on my bedside table, volume turned up, waiting for 9:47 p.m. like Pavlov's dog. And that's when I noticed the second pattern. The nights I was alone, which was most of them, the calls were brief. Question, answer, click. Sometimes my mother would add a quick, "love you," before hanging up, but not always. Just that abrupt disconnect, leaving me staring at my phone in the dark, wondering what the hell was happening. But the nights I wasn't alone, the nights Sarah was home, or I was out with friends, or I'd stayed late at the office with my colleague Devon, those calls stretched on. My mother's voice would lose that tight quality, become softer, more like her normal self. She'd ask about my day, tell me about something funny my father did, mention that the garden tomatoes were coming in beautifully this year, and my father would chime in occasionally, his deep voice rumbling in the background, asking about my work or whether I'd gotten my car's oil changed. Normal parent stuff. As long as I wasn't alone. I started lying about it sometimes, just to have a normal conversation with them. I'd say Marcus was over watching a movie, when really I was by myself, with leftover Thai food and a true crime documentary. I'd claim Sarah was in her room studying when she'd been staying at Ryan's for 3 days straight. I'd invent coffee shop visits and happy hours and yoga classes. Anything to avoid that question being answered with a yes. Anything to keep them on the phone, talking to me like I was their daughter, and not just a checkbox on some mysterious safety protocol. But lying made me feel guilty, and the guilt made me angry, and the anger made me confront them, which led to those unsatisfying text exchanges where they brushed off my concerns with platitudes about parental worry. So I stopped lying. Well, mostly. I stopped lying until last night. Tuesday, October 17th, 9:47 p.m. The phone rings right on schedule, and I'm in the middle of a particularly frustrating paragraph about community engagement metrics when I grab it without thinking, still staring at my laptop screen. Hello? Hi, sweetheart. My mother's voice, and I can hear something in it tonight. Something more tense than usual. How are you? Stressed. This grant is kicking my ass. Language, honey. But she says it absently, without real reproach. Are you alone? I open my mouth to say yes, because I am. Because Sarah's been living at Ryan's place for 6 weeks now, and I've gotten used to the solitude, even if I don't particularly like it. But something stops me. Maybe it's the tone in my mother's voice. That extra layer of tension, like a string pulled too tight. Maybe it's my own exhaustion with this whole bizarre ritual. Maybe it's the way the silence in my apartment suddenly feels too heavy, too present, like a fourth wall I've been ignoring. Or maybe it's something else. Some instinct I can't name. Some ancient prey animal part of my brain that senses danger in the darkness. No, I say. The lie comes out smooth, automatic. No, Sarah's here. We're having a late dinner. The relief in my mother's voice is immediate and palpable. Oh, that's wonderful. What are you having? I glance at my actual dinner. A sad desk salad from 3 hours ago, the lettuce now wilted, the ranch dressing congealed. Pasta. Sarah made this amazing carbonara. That sounds delicious. My mother's voice has transformed completely. All that tension evaporating like morning mist. Is she doing well? How's Ryan? They're good. Really good, actually. He might propose soon, I think. I'm spinning this web of lies effortlessly now, building a fictional evening out of nothing. And part of me wonders why I'm doing this, what I'm hoping to accomplish. But mostly, I'm just listening to my mother sound happy, sound normal. And that's enough. We talk for 20 minutes. She tells me about a fight between two different bird species at their feeder. Chickadees versus nuthatches. Apparently a serious territorial dispute. My father gets on the phone briefly to ask if I've winterized my car yet. My mother reminds me that my cousin Emily's baby shower is coming up in November, and did I want to go in on a group gift? Normal. So beautifully, perfectly normal. All right, sweetheart, my mother finally says, and I can hear her smiling through the phone. You have a good night. Give Sarah our love. I will. Love you, Mum. Love you, Dad. We love you too, honey. So much. She hangs up, and I sit there in my too quiet apartment, phone in hand, feeling like I've just completed some kind of test I didn't know I was taking. And then I go back to my grant proposal, push the weird feeling aside, and work until midnight before collapsing into bed. I don't think about the lie again until 3:17 a.m., when something wakes me. Not a sound. That's what's so unsettling. I surface from sleep slowly, confused. My heart already beating faster than it should. And I lie there in the darkness, trying to figure out what pulled me out of a dream I can't remember. My bedroom is quiet. The city outside my window is quiet. Or as quiet as downtown Minneapolis ever gets. The distant hum of traffic like white noise. My phone isn't ringing. No car alarms, no sirens, no neighbors fighting through thin walls. Just silence. And yet every instinct I have is screaming that something is wrong. I stay frozen under my blankets, barely breathing, listening with every cell in my body. My apartment is a simple one-bedroom with an open living room/kitchen area. Bathroom off the short hallway, my bedroom at the end. The door is closed. I always sleep with it closed. And I can't see anything from my bed except the faint glow of streetlights around the edges of my curtains. There's nothing there, I tell myself. You're being paranoid. Go back to sleep. But I can't, because now I'm thinking about my parents' phone calls, about the question they ask every night, the fear in my mother's voice when I say I'm alone, about the fact that I lied tonight, told them I wasn't alone when I very much am, and what if that matters somehow? The thought is absurd, superstitious, the kind of magical thinking that makes no logical sense but feels true anyway, in the 3 a.m. darkness, when your rational brain is still sleeping and your primitive brain is in full control. I reach for my phone on the nightstand, moving as quietly as possible, even though there's no reason to be quiet. And I check it. No messages. No missed calls. Just the time glowing at me. 3:18 a.m. And then I hear it. The sound of my apartment door opening. My blood turns to ice. I know that sound intimately. The specific click of the deadbolt when it's being unlocked from the outside. The faint squeak of the hinges that I keep meaning to oil but never do. The whisper of the door brushing against the carpet. Someone is coming into my apartment. My brain fractures into 1,000 directions at once. Call 911. Scream. Hide. Fight. Run. But I'm paralyzed, lying in my bed with my phone clutched in my hand, listening to footsteps in my living room. Careful footsteps. Deliberate. Someone trying to be quiet. They have a key. Some distant part of my mind notes. They didn't break in. They unlock the door like they belong here, which makes no sense. I have 3 keys to this apartment. One I keep on my regular keychain. One where I gave to Sarah when she lived here. which she gave back when she moved out. And one emergency key I gave to my parents last year, after I locked myself out and had to call a locksmith. My parents. Are you alone? The footsteps move slowly across the living room. I can track their progress by sound. Past the couch, around the coffee table, toward the hallway, toward my bedroom. I need to move. Need to do something. But I'm caught between terror and disbelief. My mind still trying to process the impossible thing that's happening. And by the time I force myself to sit up, to swing my legs out of bed, to stand on shaking legs, I hear the footsteps stop right outside my bedroom door. The doorknob turns. I'm holding my phone, screen too bright in the darkness, and my thumb finds the emergency call button as my door swings open and the silhouette fills the doorway. And I'm about to scream when, "Don't!" The voice stops me cold. It's male. Calm. Almost gentle. "Don't scream, Riley. Don't call anyone. I'm not here to hurt you." He reaches for my light switch, and fluorescent brightness floods the room, and I'm squinting through the glare at a man I've never seen before, standing in my bedroom doorway. He's maybe 35, average height, wearing jeans and a dark jacket, with brown hair, and a face that would be completely forgettable except for his eyes. His eyes are strange, not in color or shape, but in the way they're looking at me. Sad. Almost apologetic. "My name is David," he says quietly. "And I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Because your parents' phone call saved your life tonight." I'm still holding my phone, thumb hovering over the emergency call button. Every muscle in my body tends to fight or flee or scream. But something about the way he said that, "Your parents' phone call saved your life," pins me in place. "Who the fuck are you?" My voice comes out steadier than I expected. "How did you get in here?" David holds up both hands in a gesture of surrender, and I notice he's wearing thin gloves. "I know this is terrifying. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I need you to make a choice right now. Either call the police and spend the next 3 hours giving a statement while I disappear and you're left with no answers, or put the phone down and let me explain why your parents have been calling you every night for 3 months. You're out of your fucking mind if you think I'm... Your mother's name is Patricia, your father is David. Yes, same name as me. You grew up in Duluth, have a birthmark shaped like Michigan on your left shoulder blade, and your first dog was named Picasso, because you got him the same year you won second place in your elementary school art competition with a painting of a sunset that your parents still have hanging in their hallway." I freeze. These aren't facts you can find on social media. These are the kind of intimate details only someone who knows my family would know. "How? Your parents hired me." David takes a small step backward, giving me space, his hands still visible. 3 months ago, I'm a private security contractor, and they hired me to watch you, to keep you safe, and the nightly phone call is the signal. If you're alone, I'm cleared to stay outside your building, monitoring. If you're not alone, if you have people with you, then there's safety in numbers and I can pull back. The room tilts slightly around me. That's insane. That's... Why would they do that? Because something is wrong, Riley. David's voice is patient. like he's explaining something obvious to a child. Your parents discovered something 3 months ago that made them believe you're in danger. They didn't want to scare you, didn't want to disrupt your life, so they hired me to watch over you instead. The phone calls are their way of checking in without raising alarms. As long as you're with other people, the threat level is low. But when you're alone, he trails off, glances over his shoulder toward my living room. When I'm alone, what? I demand. When you're alone, you're vulnerable. And tonight, when you told them you weren't alone, they called me immediately after hanging up with you. Told me to stand down, that you had company, that I could take the night off. He looks back at me, and those sad eyes are deeply unsettling. So I did. I went home. I left you unprotected. And 20 minutes ago, someone else entered this building and started making their way to your apartment. The bottom drops out of my stomach. What? I have monitoring equipment set up in the building, motion sensors, cameras in the stairwells. Nothing illegal or invasive, just enough to track movement patterns. When the alert went off at 2:47 a.m., I checked the footage and saw someone using the fire stairs instead of the elevator. Someone who stopped on your floor. Someone who's been standing outside your apartment door for the past 30 minutes. He says this so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that it takes me a moment to process. You're lying. But my voice sounds hollow even to me. I wish I was. David pulls out his phone. Different model than mine. Something expensive and encrypted looking. And turns it so I can see the screen. It shows a grainy black and white video feed of a stairwell. As I watch, a figure emerges onto what I recognize as my floor, 4th level, and moves down the hallway with purpose. The timestamp reads 2:47 a.m. The figure stops at a door. My door. I watch as they stand there, completely still, for what the timestamp indicates is 26 minutes. Just standing, waiting. What are they doing? I whisper. Listening. Waiting to hear if you really are alone, or if your parents were telling the truth about you having company. David pockets his phone. When I saw this, I realized you'd lied. I realized you were alone and unprotected and someone was about to make their move. So I came in through the back entrance, took the freight elevator, and got here as fast as I could. And the person outside my door? Where are they now? Gone. The moment they heard me unlock your door, they retreated back to the stairwell. They're probably out of the building by now. He pauses. But they'll be back, Riley. Unless we do something about this. I'm shaking now. The adrenaline finally catching up with the fear. I sink back onto the edge of my bed, phone and still clutched in my hand like a talisman. This doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. Who would want to? Why would someone? That's what we need to figure out. David's voice softens. And that's why I need you to call your parents. Right now. They need to know you're okay. And more importantly, we all need to talk about what happens next. It's 3 a.m. They're awake. Trust me. They've been awake since they realized I wasn't watching you tonight. I look down at my phone, at my mother's name in my recent calls list, and my hand is trembling as I press it. She answers on the first ring. Riley? Her voice is frantic, shredded. Riley, baby, are you okay? Where are you? Is David there? My voice breaks. I'm here. I'm okay. He's here, Mom. What the fuck is going on? I hear her sob once, sharp and desperate, and then my father's voice comes on the line, that deep, steady rumble I've known my whole life. Sweetheart, listen to me. We need you to pack a bag. Right now. David is going to bring you somewhere safe, and we're going to drive down tonight, and we're going to explain everything. Can you do that? Dad? Can you pack a bag, Riley? Please. There's something in his voice I've never heard before. Terror, yes, but also guilt. Deep, corroding guilt. Okay, I hear myself say. Okay, I'll pack. Good girl. We love you so much. We're so sorry. We're going to fix this, I promise. He hangs up before I can respond. I pack in a daze, moving through my apartment like a ghost, while David stands watch by my front door. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, chargers. The essentials of a life being suddenly uprooted. I keep expecting this to feel more dramatic, more movie-like, but mostly it just feels surreal and exhausting. Where are we going? I ask as I zip up my duffel bag. Hotel downtown, paid for in cash, under a false name. Just until your parents get here and we can figure out next steps. David picks up my bag before I can, slinging it over his shoulder. We'll take the freight elevator down, exit through the loading dock. My car is parked a block away. This is insane, I mutter. But I follow him anyway. Because what else am I going to do? The building is silent as we move through it. The fluorescent lights in the service hallway flicker overhead. David moves with a kind of casual alertness that makes me think he's done this before, many times, in places far more dangerous than a Minneapolis apartment building at 4 a.m. His car is a nondescript sedan that could be an Uber for all I can tell. He opens the passenger door for me, puts my bag in the back, and within minutes we're driving through empty streets toward downtown, past closed restaurants and dark storefronts, and the occasional homeless person bundled in a doorway. How long have you been watching me? I ask into the silence. 93 days. His eyes stay on the road. From a distance, mostly. I'm good at being invisible. You probably passed me a dozen times without noticing. The thought makes my skin crawl. And in all that time, you never saw anything suspicious. No one following me, no weird incidents. Nothing. Whoever this is, they're patient, careful. They've been waiting for the right opportunity. He glances at me briefly, which makes me think they know about me. About the security measures. They've been waiting for a gap in coverage. The gap I created by lying to my parents. Yes. We drive in silence for another few minutes, and then I can't hold it in anymore. Tell me the truth. The whole truth. What did my parents discover 3 months ago? David pulls into an underground parking garage beneath a hotel I've walked past 100 times. He kills the engine and sits for a moment, hands still on the wheel. I think, he says carefully, that's a conversation you need to have with them. But I will tell you this. Your parents love you more than anything in this world. And whatever they did, whatever mistakes they made, they did it trying to protect you. Protect me from what? He finally turns to look at me, and in the dim light of the parking garage, his face looks older, more worn. From their past, the hotel room is generic, in the way all hotel rooms are generic. Beige walls, industrial carpet, a bed with too many decorative pillows, a desk with a coffee maker and packets of artificial creamer. But it's clean and quiet, and on the 8th floor with a good view of the street below, and David checks every inch of it before letting me fully inside. "I'll be right outside," he says, positioning himself in the hallway where he can see both the elevator and the stairwell door. "Your parents should be here in about 3 hours. Try to get some rest." "You're joking, right?" A ghost of a smile crosses his face. "Yeah, I figured. But try anyway." He closes the door, and I'm alone again. Except I'm not really alone, am I? There's a trained security contractor standing guard outside my door. And somewhere out there in the October night, my parents are driving through the darkness to meet me, carrying explanations for why my entire life suddenly feels like a lie. From their past, David had said. What past? My parents are the most normal, boring people I know. My father worked in insurance for 35 years before retiring. My mother was a middle school librarian. They live in a modest house in Duluth, garden and birdwatch, and take cruises with their friends from church. They're not the kind of people who have dangerous secrets, who hire private security, who live in fear of shadows from decades ago. Are they? I sit on the edge of the hotel bed, still wearing the pajamas I threw on before going to sleep in my apartment. God, was that only a few hours ago? And I pull out my phone. My hands are steadier now, the adrenaline fading into exhaustion. And I open my text thread with my mother. The last message is from yesterday afternoon. "Don't forget to check your tire pressure before it gets too cold." I almost laugh. It's so perfectly her, so mundane and maternal. The kind of text that suggests a woman whose biggest worry is her daughter's car maintenance. Not, whatever this is. I scroll up through our conversation history. Months of texts about nothing and everything. Recipes, photos of their garden, questions about my work, reminders about family birthdays. Not a single hint of fear or secrets or danger. But then again, I think about those nightly phone calls. Are you alone? The question I thought was just parental anxiety, but was actually something else entirely. A check-in, a status report, a way to know if I needed protection. My phone buzzes in my hand, making me jump. But it's just my mother. We're on the road. Be there by 7:30. I love you so much, baby. We're going to explain everything. I don't respond. I'm not sure what to say. Instead, I do what I've been doing for 3 months. I try to make sense of a situation that doesn't make sense. I pull up Google on my phone and start searching. Patricia and David Kelly, Duluth, Minnesota. Nothing but normal results. My mother's LinkedIn still active even though she retired. My father's obituary posts for various relatives, property records for their house. Riley Kelly, Minneapolis. My own sparse digital footprint. Professional website for my non-profit work. A couple of articles I'm quoted in. My runner profile from the half marathon I ran 2 years ago. Nothing suspicious. Nothing that screams target of unknown danger. I try different search combinations, adding words like security and threat and protection. But it's useless. Whatever my parents discovered 3 months ago, it's not something I'm going to find on Google at 4:47 a.m. 4:47. I stare at the time on my phone, and something clicks into place. The nightly calls are at 9:47 p.m. But the person outside my apartment showed up at 2:47 a.m. And I woke up. Woke up for no clear reason, just a sudden feeling of wrongness at 3:17 a.m. I don't believe in numerology or mysticism or signs from the universe, but I believe in patterns, and there's a pattern here I'm not quite seeing. 47. What does 47 mean? I must doze off eventually, because the next thing I know, someone is knocking firmly on the hotel room door, and weak sunlight is filtering through the curtains, and my phone says 7:42 a.m. Riley? It's us. My mother's voice. I scramble off the bed, still disoriented, and yank open the door to find both my parents standing in the hallway, looking like they've aged 10 years overnight. My mother's face is pale and drawn, her eyes red-rimmed. My father's shoulders are hunched in a way I've never seen before, like he's carrying a weight that's finally too heavy. David stands a few feet behind them, watchful. Oh, baby da. My mother pulls me into a crushing hug before I can speak, and she's trembling against me. Or maybe I'm trembling against her. And for a moment, I'm 7 years old again, running to her after skinning my knee, believing she can fix anything. But I'm not 7, and I need answers, not comfort. What's going on? I pull back from the hug, look between them. What past are you protecting me from? My father's face crumples. He actually staggers a little, and David moves forward to grip his elbow, steady him, guide him into the hotel room. We all file in. My parents, David, me. And David closes the door and engages the deadbolt and the security bar with practiced efficiency. Sit down, sweetheart, my mother says, her voice hoarse. I don't want to sit down. I want the truth. You're going to want to sit down for this, my father says quietly. So I sit. On the desk chair, arms crossed, watching as my parents settle onto the edge of the bed, holding hands like they need each other for support. David remains standing by the door, a silent presence. My mother takes a deep breath. Your father and I aren't who you think we are. The words hang in the air like smoke. What does that mean, I ask, even though part of me doesn't want to know. Wants to stand up and walk out of this hotel room and go back to my apartment and pretend none of this is happening. My father speaks, his voice rough. Our real names are Patricia and David Kelly. That part is true. But before we became your parents, before we moved to Duluth and lived quiet lives, we were someone else. We did something else. Okay. I'm gripping the arms of the chair so hard my knuckles are white. What did you do? We were thieves, my mother says simply. Art thieves for almost 15 years. The room tilts again, harder this time. You were kidding. I wish we were. My father's laugh is bitter. We were good at it too. Very good. We worked with a crew, 5 of us total, and we specialized in high-value pieces from private collections. Museums were too risky, too much security, but rich people who keep Rembrandts in their home offices, they're targets. I'm shaking my head because this can't be real. You worked in insurance. You were a librarian. Those were our legitimate jobs, yes. Our cover. My mother's voice is steady now, like she's relieved to finally be telling the truth. Your father really did work in insurance. It gave him access to information about valuable collections, about security systems, about when wealthy clients were going to be out of town. I really was a librarian. It gave us a quiet, respectable presence in whatever city we were living in. But at night, on weekends, when we told you we were at conferences or visiting friends, we were working jobs, stealing paintings. Paintings, sculptures, rare books, jewelry, whatever the client wanted. My father meets my eyes. And before you ask, yes, we had clients. We didn't keep the pieces. We stole to order, sold to private collectors who didn't care about legality as long as they got what they wanted. I'm trying to process this, trying to reconcile the image of my mild-mannered parents with master art thieves. And it's like trying to force two puzzle pieces together that clearly don't fit. When? I manage. When did you do this? We started in our 20s, before you were born. My mother's eyes are distant, looking at a past I never knew existed. We met on a job, actually. Your father was on a crew that needed an inside person at a museum in Chicago, and I was working there as an assistant curator. It was supposed to be one job, but one became two became 10, and before we knew it, we had a reputation. We were making more money than we ever dreamed of. We were living this exciting, dangerous life, and it felt like we were invincible. Then I came along, I say flatly. Then you came along. My father's voice cracks, and everything changed. Suddenly, we had something more valuable than any painting, more important than any score. We had you, and we realized we'd been playing with fire, that every job was a risk, not just to ourselves, but to you. What if we got caught? What if something went wrong? What if you grew up visiting us in prison? So we decided to get out, my mother continues. We did one final job, the biggest of our careers, and we used that money to disappear. New identities, new location, new lives. We moved to Duluth when you were 3. You don't remember our life before that. I don't. My earliest memories are of Duluth, of the house on the hill overlooking the lake, of walking to the elementary school 3 blocks away. I'd always assumed we'd lived there my whole life. What was the final job? I hear myself ask. My parents exchange a look. A collector in New York, my father says slowly. Very wealthy, very connected, very dangerous. He had a Vermeer he'd acquired through, let's say, questionable means. He kept it in a vault in his penthouse. Our client wanted it badly enough to offer us $2 million. $2 million? I'm doing the math despite myself. $2 million in early 1990s money. Split among 5 crew members. Still a fortune. And you got it? The Vermeer. We got it. My mother's voice is flat. The job was perfect. In and out. No alarms tripped. No witnesses. We delivered the painting to our client, got our money, and went our separate ways. The crew disbanded. We became Patricia and David Kelly, former art thieves turned boring middle-class parents. And for 25 years, we thought we'd gotten away with it. The silence that follows is heavy with implication. But you didn't, I say. We didn't. My father stands, starts pacing the small hotel room. I recognize the gesture. He paces when he's anxious, when he's trying to organize his thoughts. I've seen him do it 1,000 times. Usually when he's worried about something mundane like property taxes, or whether the furnace will make it through another winter. Not when he's confessing to crimes that could still send him to prison. 3 months ago, he says, I got a phone call at work from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, the voice on the other end said just 3 words, I know everything. A chill runs down my spine. Then they hung up. I thought it was a prank, or a wrong number, or maybe even a scam. But the next day, I got an envelope in the mail at my office. No return address, postmarked from Minneapolis. Minneapolis, where I live. Inside was a photograph, my mother says, her voice barely above a whisper. A photograph of you, Riley, walking out of your apartment building, dated 2 days earlier. The chill becomes ice in my veins. And a note, my father continues, typed, no signature. It said, she doesn't know what you are. She doesn't know what you did, but she will, unless you do exactly what I say. Jesus Christ, I breathe. We panicked, my mother says. We didn't know who had sent it, or how they knew about our past, or what they wanted. All we knew was that they had you in their sights. So we called the only person we could think of who might be able to help. She gestures to David. We'd worked with David on a few jobs back in the day. My father explains. He was our security expert. He's since gone legitimate, mostly, and he owed us a favor. We asked him to watch you, to keep you safe, while we figured out who was threatening us. And the phone calls? I ask. That was my idea, David says from his position by the door. A daily check-in that wouldn't seem suspicious. If Riley was alone, I needed to be actively monitoring. If she had people around her, the threat level decreased significantly. Most predators won't make a move if there are witnesses. Predators, I repeat. Someone is hunting me because of something you did 25 years ago. Not hunting you, exactly. My father has stopped pacing, is now standing with his back to the window, backlit by the morning sun, using you as leverage to get what they want. Which is? Another long silence. Finally, my mother says, the Vermeer. They want us to steal it back. I actually laugh. It's a short, sharp sound that doesn't contain any humor. Steal it back? From who? I thought you sold it 25 years ago. We did. My father comes to sit next to my mother again, takes her hand. To a man named Alexei Volkov, Russian billionaire, made his money in oil and gas, passionate art collector. He paid us $2 million for that Vermeer, and presumably has kept it in his collection ever since. Okay, so why doesn't whoever is threatening you just steal it themselves? Why do they need you? Because, David interjects, Alexei Volkov is now one of the most security-conscious collectors in the world. After he was robbed by your parents, he upgraded everything. His estate is a fortress. Biometric locks, armed guards, motion sensors, pressure plates, the works. It's not a job for amateurs. It requires someone with intimate knowledge of high-level art theft. Someone like your parents, who have been retired for a quarter century, I point out. They're in their 60s. They're not exactly in prime heist shape. Which is exactly what we told the blackmailer. My mother says. After that first letter, Dwight, we got more specific instructions. They want us to plan and execute the theft within 6 months. They've given us a deadline, January the 15th. If we don't deliver the Vermeer by then, they'll... She trails off, can't finish. They'll kill me. I finish for her. That's the threat, isn't it? They didn't use those words explicitly, my father says carefully. But the implication was clear. And the follow-up messages have been increasingly graphic about what happens to you if we don't comply. Follow-up messages? Plural? One a week, David says. Every Sunday at midnight. An email to an anonymous account your parents set up. Each one contains another photo of you at work, at the grocery store, at your gym, and another reminder of what's at stake. I'm going to be sick. Show me, I say. Show me the messages. My parents look at each other. Some wordless communication passes between them, and then my mother pulls out her phone, an old flip phone, I notice, not a smartphone, and opens it to a text screen. We can't show you the photos, she says quietly. We deleted them immediately. We couldn't bear to keep them, but I copied down the last message, word for word. She hands me the phone, and I read, "Your daughter is beautiful when she sleeps. It would be a shame if she stopped breathing. You have 89 days, tick-tock." The words blur together. I have to read them 3 times before they make sense. When was this sent? Last Sunday, October 8th. Which means they've been counting down. Which means we're at, I do the math quickly, about 82 days left. So let me get this straight, I say, my voice surprisingly steady, given that I'm mentally screaming. Someone, we don't know who, somehow discovered your past as art thieves. They're blackmailing you to steal back a painting you already stole once, from a man who now has Fort Knox level security. You have less than 3 months to pull this off, and if you fail, they're going to kill me. That's the situation, yes, my father says miserably. And your plan is, what exactly? We don't have one yet, my mother admits. We've been stalling, trying to figure out who's behind this, trying to find a way out that doesn't involve either committing another crime or losing you. We hired David to protect you because we didn't know what else to do. You could have told me. My voice rises despite my efforts to control it. You could have told me 3 months ago, instead of making me think you were just going crazy with your weird phone calls. You could have explained that my life was in danger. We didn't want to scare you. I'm scared now. The shout echoes in the hotel room. My mother flinches. My father looks like he might cry. David remains impassive. I stand up abruptly, start pacing the same path my father did earlier. This is insane. This is completely insane. We need to go to the police. Right now. Tell them everything. Get actual protection, not just one guy with cameras. No offense, David, and let them handle it. We can't, my father says. Why the hell not? Because we're still criminals, Riley. His voice is harsh now, stripped of its usual gentleness. There's no statute of limitations on art theft of this magnitude. If we go to the police, if we confess what we did, we go to prison for the rest of our lives. And you? He swallows hard. You'd be left alone, unprotected. Whatever threat we're facing, they clearly have resources, connections, information. The police might not be able to stop them before they get to you. So we're just supposed to commit another crime. Break into some Russian billionaire's house and steal a painting for the second time. I don't know. My mother's composure finally breaks. She's crying now, shoulders shaking. I don't know what we're supposed to do. We've spent 3 months trying to figure this out, and we're no closer to an answer. We were young and stupid and greedy, and we made terrible choices. And now you're paying the price for our mistakes. And I'm so sorry, Riley. I'm so sorry. I've seen my mother cry maybe 5 times in my entire life. Seeing it now, in this sterile hotel room, while we discuss threats and blackmail and murder, breaks something inside me. I sink down onto the floor, back against the wall, and drop my head into my hands. There has to be another way, I say into the silence. There has to be. If you think of one, David says, quietly, I'm all ears. We sit there for a long time. How long, I'm not sure. The sun rises higher outside the window. Traffic noise increases as Minneapolis wakes up to a Wednesday morning. And inside this hotel room, we're trapped in an impossible situation. Finally, I look up at David. You said you were on their crew. You helped steal the Vermeer the first time. I provided security intel and equipment, yes. So you know Volkov's estate. You know what we'd be dealing with. I know what it was like 25 years ago. I guarantee it's completely different now. But you could find out. You could scout it, assess the current situation. David looks at me with something like surprise. You're actually considering this. I'm considering staying alive. I turn to my parents. Look, I'm furious with you. I'm terrified. I feel like my entire childhood was a lie, but you're still my parents. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering when some psycho is going to make good on their threat. If the only way out is through, then we need to know what through actually looks like. Riley, no. My mother shakes her head emphatically. We're not dragging you into this. We're not making you complicit in... I'm already complicit. I'm already the target. I'd rather be a participant than a victim. My father studies me with an expression I can't read. When did you get so brave? I learned from you, apparently. You just didn't tell me what I was learning. It's a barb, and he takes it, wincing. David, I continue, can you get information on Volkov's current setup? Security systems, guard rotations, architectural plans? Probably. It'll take time and it won't be cheap. How much time? 2 weeks, minimum, maybe 3. That leaves us with about 10 weeks to plan and execute a heist. Is that enough? David looks at my parents. Some silent conversation happens between the 3 of them. Years of shared history and expertise communicating without words. It's tight, David finally says, but theoretically possible. If we had the full crew. The crew disbanded, my father says. We haven't been in touch with any of them in 25 years. Then we find them, I say. How many were there? 5 total. Your parents, myself, and 2 others. Marcus Hale. He was our inside man, could talk his way into anywhere. And Sarah Chen, electronics and alarms expert. I freeze. Sarah Chen? Yes, why? My roommate who just moved out. Her name is Sarah Chen. The silence that follows is deafening. Then David is moving, fast, pulling out his encrypted phone and typing rapidly. How long did she live with you? 6 months. She answered my ad on Craigslist. Moved in last April. I stop. April. 3 months before the first threatening letter arrived. Oh God. Marcus Hale. My father's voice is dead. Where did you meet him? Through work, he's on the board of... I stop again. He joined the board in March. David looks up from his phone, his face grim. It's a trap. It's been a trap from the beginning. They didn't just threaten Riley. They planted themselves in her life. They've been watching her from the inside for months. The realization crashes over me in waves. Sarah, my roommate, the woman I shared an apartment with for 6 months, who borrowed my coffee and complained about her boyfriend and helped me paint the living room. She knew where I kept my spare key. She knew my schedule, my habits, my routines. She had access to everything. And Marcus. Distinguished, silver-haired Marcus Hale, board member at the youth arts nonprofit where I work, who I've sat across from in a dozen meetings, who shook my hand and complimented my grant writing skills and recommended me for a raise. They were both on my parents' crew a quarter century ago. And now they're using me as a pawn to force my parents back into the life they left behind. Why? The word comes out strangled. Why would they do this? Were you enemies? Did something go wrong? We were friends. My mother's voice is hollow. Or we thought we were. When we decided to leave after the Volkov job, we told them both. Marcus he wasn't happy. He said we were betraying the crew, that you don't just walk away from this life. But we thought he'd eventually understand. We thought he'd move on. Sarah was younger than the rest of us, my father adds. Just 22 when we did that last job. Brilliant with electronics, completely fearless. I think she looked up to us in a way. When we left, she was hurt. She felt abandoned. So this is revenge? I ask incredulously. 25 years later, they're orchestrating this elaborate scheme because their feelings were hurt. It's not just revenge. David is still focused on his phone, pulling up information I can't see. Look at the timeline. 6 months ago, Sarah moves in with you. 5 months ago, Marcus joins your board. 3 months ago, the first threat arrives. They weren't just waiting for the right moment. They were building to it, establishing trust, gathering information, making themselves indispensable in your life. Why not just threaten me directly? Why go through all this? Because they need to control all the variables, my father says slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. They can't just tell us to steal the Vermeer and hope we comply. They need leverage, yes, but they also need intel, current security information, patterns of behavior, access to resources. Sarah living with you gave her a front row seat to your life. Marcus on your board gave him influence in your professional world. Between the two of them, they could monitor almost everything you do. And the person outside my apartment last night? I look at David. That was one of them. I didn't get a clear view, but given what we now know, yes, probably Sarah. She still has a key, doesn't she? I think about the spare key Sarah returned when she moved out. Except now, I'm wondering if she actually returned the original, or if she had a copy made. I'm wondering how many times she might have let herself into the apartment while I was at work, going through my things, my computer, my mail, violating every inch of my privacy while pretending to be my friend. That fucking bitch, I say softly. My mother makes a sound that might be a laugh or a sob. Yeah, that about sums it up. So what's the play here? I turn to David. They're forcing us to steal the Vermeer. But what do they get out of it? Are they planning to sell it themselves? Keep it? What's the end game? That's what we need to figure out. David finally pockets his phone. But first, we need to establish some basic security protocols. Riley, you're not going back to your apartment. We'll arrange to have your things moved to a secure location. You're not going to work. Call in sick. Say it's a family emergency, which is true enough. No social media, no contact with anyone outside this room until we know exactly what we're dealing with. For 10 weeks? I'm supposed to just disappear for 10 weeks? For however long it takes to keep you alive? Yes. The finality in his voice silences my protests. Your parents will go back to Duluth. David continues. Act normal like nothing has changed. If Marcus and Sarah are watching, and we have to assume they are, we can't let them know we've figured out their game. They need to believe they still have the upper hand. While we do what? My father asks. While we plan our own counter-move. David's smile is sharp and cold. They want us to steal the Vermeer. Fine. We'll steal it, but on our terms, not theirs. And when we're done, we're going to make damn sure they never threaten anyone in this family again. The rest of the morning is a blur of logistics and planning. David makes phone calls to people I don't know, speaking in a shorthand I don't understand. My parents call my work and tell them I've had a family emergency and won't be in for at least a week. I pack up what little I brought to the hotel room and prepare to move again, this time to what David calls a safe house, which turns out to be a nondescript condo in a suburb I've never heard of, rented under a false name and equipped with security measures that make my former apartment look like a cardboard box with a padlock. My parents leave around noon, and my mother holds me for a long time before getting in their car, whispering apologies into my hair. My father's goodbye is shorter, but more intense, his hands gripping my shoulders, his eyes boring into mine. We're going to fix this, he says. I promise you, Riley. We're going to fix this. I want to believe him. I want to believe that my parents, in their 60s, decades removed from their criminal past, can somehow outwit and outmaneuver two people who have been planning this for months, possibly years. But mostly, I'm just exhausted and scared and so far beyond my depth, I can't even see the shore anymore. David drives me to the safe house in silence. It's in Edina, a wealthy suburb southwest of Minneapolis. And the condo is on the top floor of a building with controlled access and security cameras at every entrance. Inside, it's furnished in that bland, temporary way of corporate rentals. Grey couches, glass tables, abstract art that looks like it came from a hotel lobby. There's food in the fridge, David says, doing his security sweep. Internet is secure, but don't log into any of your personal accounts. Don't call anyone. Don't post anything. For all intents and purposes, you're a ghost for the next few weeks. This is prison, I say flatly. This is survival. He hands me a phone, another burner, I assume. This is programmed with my number, your parents' number, and emergency services. That's it. If you need anything, call me. I'll be checking in twice a day, minimum. And Riley? I look up at him. I know this is terrifying. I know you're angry and confused and probably thinking your parents are monsters for dragging you into this. But they love you more than anything. And I give you my word. I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. Why? The question surprises even me. Why do you care? You barely know me. You're getting paid, sure, but this is above and beyond any security contract. Why are you doing this? David is quiet for a moment, and something like pain crosses his face. Because 25 years ago, I helped your parents steal a painting, and I used my cut of the money to get my sister out of an abusive relationship, to set her up somewhere safe where her ex-husband couldn't find her. Your parents didn't just give me money, they gave me a chance to save someone I loved. I owe them that debt, and I pay my debts. He leaves before I can respond. Days blend together in the safe house. I wake up, eat breakfast from the well-stocked fridge, and sit on the grey couch watching morning light move across the grey carpet. David calls at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m., asks if I'm okay, if I need anything, if I've noticed any suspicious activity. The answers are always the same. Yes, no, no. I'm not allowed to read the news because David is worried I'll see something that will connect me to whatever Sarah and Marcus are planning. I'm not allowed to use social media for obvious reasons. I'm not allowed to contact my friends because anyone I talk to becomes a potential vulnerability. So I sit. I think. I remember. I remember Sarah on the day she moved in, bright and cheerful, making jokes about how small the bedroom was but insisting it was perfect. Did she seem too eager? Too friendly? I replay our conversations, looking for cracks in her persona, but I can't find them. She was good. Really good. I remember Marcus at board meetings, always prepared, always professional, asking me thoughtful questions about program outcomes and community impact. He even wrote me a reference letter for a grant application. Was that all just part of the plan? Building trust, establishing himself as an ally. The betrayal burns worse than the fear sometimes. On the fourth day, my father calls. How are you holding up? His voice is careful, like he's talking to something fragile that might shatter. I'm fine. I'm not fine. But what else am I supposed to say? We're working on the plan. David's making progress on Volkov's current security setup. We should have a preliminary assessment by next week. Great. The word comes out flat. Silence stretches between us, full of all the things we're not saying. Riley, I need you to understand something. My father's voice is low, intense. What we did, all those years ago, stealing art, living that life. We're not proud of it, but we're not ashamed either. We didn't hurt anyone. We took from people who had more than they needed, who acquired art through questionable means themselves. We weren't Robin Hood, but we weren't monsters. You were criminals, Dad. You broke the law, multiple times over years. Yes, we were. We broke laws that we believed were designed to protect the wealthy more than anyone else. And we used that money to give you a good life, to make sure you never wanted for anything, to send you to college without debt. He pauses. I'm not asking you to approve of what we did. I'm asking you to understand that people are complicated, that good people sometimes do bad things, that your mother and I made choices we thought were right at the time, and now we're paying for them. And we're so sorry you're caught in the crossfire. I'm crying now, silently, tears running down my face. I know, I whisper. I know you love me. I know you were trying to protect me. I need time to process this. All of it. Take all the time you need, sweetheart. We're not going anywhere. After he hangs up, I sit in the grey living room and cry for an hour. mourning the simple, uncomplicated relationship I used to have with my parents, the version of them I thought I knew. On the seventh day, David shows up at the condo with a laptop and a grim expression. "I have the security assessment on Volkov's estate," he says, setting up the computer on the dining table. "You should see this." I look over his shoulder as he pulls up files. Architectural plans, security protocols, guard schedules, dozens of documents that he must have acquired through means I probably don't want to know about. Volkov's estate is in Connecticut, sprawling across 30 acres of prime real estate. The main house is a modern fortress, disguised as a mansion. Reinforced walls, bulletproof windows, a vault on the second floor that requires 3 separate authentication methods to access. The Vermeer is almost certainly in that vault. "This is impossible," I say, looking at the layers of security. Motion sensors, pressure boson plates, biometric locks, armed guards on rotation 24/7. Even if you somehow got past all of that, how would you even find the painting? There could be dozens of pieces in that vault. "It's not impossible," David says. "It's just very, very difficult. Your parents and I have done harder jobs. 25 years ago, when you were younger and in practice." Fair point. He leans back, studies me. "Which is why we need to think outside the box. We can't do this the old way with a full crew and elaborate planning and synchronized timing. We need something simpler, something unexpected." "Like what?" "I'm working on it." He closes the laptop. "But I wanted you to see what we're up against. I wanted you to understand that if we do this, if we actually attempt to steal the Vermeer again, there's a very real chance it goes wrong, that we get caught, that people get hurt. Including me. Especially you if we fail. Because if we don't deliver the painting to Marcus and Sarah by their deadline, they've made very clear what happens next." I've been trying not to think about that. About the messages my parents showed me, the photos of me sleeping, the escalating threats. About what it would feel like to have someone break into this safe house, to find me here despite all David's precautions. "What are our actual chances?" I ask. "If you're being honest, no false hope or reassurance. What's the real probability of success?" David considers this for a long moment. With a full crew and 3 months to prepare? Maybe 60%. But we don't have a full crew. Marcus and Sarah were integral parts of the team. We're down 2 people, which means we're operating at maybe 40% capacity. Add in the fact that your parents are older, that I'm rustier than I'd like to admit, that we're working on a compressed timeline. I'd say 25%. Maybe 30 if we get lucky. Those are terrible odds. Yes, they are. But we're doing it anyway. Unless you have a better idea. I don't. I've spent 7 days in this condo thinking of alternatives, and they all lead to the same place. We can't go to the police without my parents going to prison and me being left vulnerable. We can't negotiate with Marcus and Sarah because they hold all the leverage. And we can't run because they've proven they can find us anywhere. The only way out is through. When do we start? I ask. Your parents are driving down tomorrow. We'll meet here and begin detailed planning. David stands, prepares to leave. Get some rest tonight, Riley. Once we start this, there's no stopping until it's done. After he leaves, I stand at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the condo, looking out at the suburbs sprawling below me. Somewhere out there, Sarah and Marcus are waiting, watching, counting down the days until their deadline. I press my palm against the glass, feel the cold seeping through. I'm coming for you, I think. Both of you. And when this is over, you're going to regret the day you decided to use me as a weapon against my family. It's the first moment since this nightmare began that I feel something other than fear. I feel angry. And anger, I'm learning, can be a powerful motivator. My parents arrive the next morning looking like they've aged another decade in the week since I last saw them. We sit around the dining table, me, them, David, and for a long moment, nobody speaks. Finally, my mother breaks the silence. Show her. David opens his laptop and pulls up a document. We've identified 3 possible approaches to Volkov's vault. None of them are great, but one might be workable. He outlines them systematically. Option 1. A full frontal assault. Break in at night, disable the security system, neutralize the guards, crack the vault, grab the painting and get out before law enforcement arrives. Time required, approximately 18 minutes from breach to escape. Success, probability, less than 5%. So that's out, I say. Completely. David moves to the next option. Option 2. A long game infiltration. Get someone on the inside, as a staff member, contractor, or guest, and have them gradually gather intelligence, disable security measures, and eventually access the vault during a window of opportunity. Time required, 2 to 4 months. Success, probability, 40%. We don't have 2 to 4 months, my father points out. We have 10 weeks, less than that really, if we factor in the time needed to fence the painting after we steal it. Which brings us to option 3. David clicks to a new page, and I lean forward to read the details. Option 3. The social engineering approach. Don't break into the vault. Get Volkov to open it for us. Create a scenario where he willingly brings the Vermeer out of secure storage, at which point we intercept it. Time required, 6 to 8 weeks of preparation, plus execution. Success probability, 35%. How? I ask. Why would a paranoid billionaire remove a stolen painting from his vault? For authentication, my mother says quietly. It's one of the vulnerabilities we identified during the original job. Volkov is obsessed with his collection, but he's also paranoid about forgeries. Every few years, he has his pieces examined by independent experts to verify their authenticity. If we could convince him that there's a question about the Vermeer's provenance, he might agree to have it examined. And when he brings it out for examination, we make the switch. My father spreads his hands. We provide the expert, who is actually us. We examine the painting, which we know is real because we stole it ourselves. And during the examination, we substitute it with a forgery. Volkov gets his authentication certificate. We get the original Vermeer, and if we do it right, he won't realize the switch for years. I'm skeptical. That seems like a lot of moving parts. How do we get Volkov to agree to an examination? How do we create a convincing forgery? How do we make sure he doesn't authenticate the painting with someone he already knows and trusts? We plant the seed of doubt through his own network. David explains. Volkov moves in certain circles. Collectors, dealers, auction houses. We create rumors through those channels that several Vermeers have been proven to be forgeries recently. We make him paranoid and then we offer him a solution. A renowned expert with impeccable credentials and no connection to him, who can definitively authenticate his piece. Who's the expert? Your mother, David says. I turn to look at her. Mum? She smiles slightly. I did tell you I worked at a museum before you were born. I have a master's degree in art history from Columbia. Those credentials are real, even if I use them for less than legal purposes later. With a bit of updating, publishing a few articles under a different name, establishing a consultancy, building a reputation, I could position myself as an independent authentication expert. In 8 weeks? I'm doubtful. In 8 weeks, for Volkov's purposes, yes. Remember, we're not trying to become internationally renowned. We just need to be credible enough that a paranoid collector who's been hearing rumors about forgeries is willing to have us examine his painting. And the forgery itself? I look at my father. Where do we get a fake Vermeer that's good enough to fool a billionaire? We make it, he says simply. I've been practicing. He pulls out his phone, swipes through some images, and holds it out to me. On the screen is a painting. Not the Vermeer, but something similar in style. It's beautiful, rendered in those characteristic soft tones and luminous light that define Dutch Golden Age work. You painted that? Last week. It's been a long time since I did any serious art, but apparently it's like riding a bike. He looks almost embarrassed. I was a double major in college, insurance and fine arts. The insurance paid the bills, but the art was my passion. When we got into the theft business, that knowledge became useful for identifying valuable pieces, understanding security measures at museums, that kind of thing. I never thought I'd be using it to forge a Vermeer. Can you do it? Can you create something good enough to pass initial inspection? If I can get access to the right materials, study high-resolution images of the original, and have 6 weeks to work. Yes, it won't fool a detailed scientific analysis, but for a cursory examination by a collector who just wants reassurance, it'll be enough. I sit back, trying to process all of this. So the plan is, spend 6 weeks building Mom's credentials as an authentication expert and Dad creating a forgery. Then plant rumors in Volkov's circles about forgeries. Wait for him to get paranoid enough to seek outside authentication, have Mum come in as the expert, make the switch during the examination, and walk out with the original painting. That's the plan, David confirms. It's insane. It's the best option we have. I look at my parents. My mother meets my eyes steadily. And I see in her face the woman she must have been 25 years ago. Confident, brilliant, unafraid. My father is already sketching something on a notepad, his artist's hands moving with practiced ease. These are my parents, but they're also art thieves, and right now I need them to be both. Okay, I say, let's do it. But I have one condition. They all look at me. I'm part of this. Not just the target you're protecting, not just the reason for all of this. I want in on the planning, the execution, everything. If we're going to do this, we do it as a family. My mother starts to protest, but my father stops her with a hand on her arm. She's right, he says. This is happening because of our past. But it's Riley's present. She deserves to be part of it. After a moment, my mother nods. "All right," David says, and there's something like respect in his eyes. "Welcome to the crew, Riley. Let's steal a Vermeer." The next 6 weeks are the strangest, most intense period of my life. The safe house in Edina becomes our headquarters. David brings in equipment, computers, printers, art supplies, reference materials. My father sets up a makeshift studio in the second bedroom, covering the windows with blackout curtains and installing special lighting. My mother takes over the dining table, surrounding herself with books and journals and her laptop, building her cover identity as Dr. Patricia Morrison, independent art authentication specialist. I learn things about my parents I never knew. I learned that my mother can read and write in 4 languages. I learned that she has an encyclopedic knowledge of art history, can date a painting to within a decade by examining brushstroke techniques, can identify a forgery by the chemical composition of the pigments used. I learned that my father has hands that can create beauty from nothing. I watch him mix paints according to recipes that are centuries old, preparing his canvas with rabbit skin glue and chalk ground the way Vermeer himself would have done. I watch him study high-resolution images of the stolen painting, which David acquires from sources I don't ask about, until he can close his eyes and describe every detail from memory. And I learn that David is more than just a security contractor. He's a strategist, a researcher, a problem solver who thinks 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He maps out Volkov's social network, identifies the key influencers and gossips in the art collecting world, and crafts a campaign of whispered rumors and planted doubts that spreads like a virus through those rarefied circles. My role is research and logistics. I spend my days digging into Volkov's history, his collecting habits, his security upgrades. I create timelines and flowcharts and backup plans. I learn about art theft techniques, forgery detection methods, the psychology of collectors. I become an expert in something I never wanted to know anything about. And through it all, the deadline counts down. 9 weeks until January 15th. 8 weeks. 7. We receive the weekly messages from Marcus and Sarah like clockwork. Every Sunday at midnight, my parents' anonymous email account gets another threat. Another photo of me that was taken months ago when Sarah lived with me. Images I recognize from that period, places I went, moments I thought were private. 6 days remaining. I hope you're making progress. 69 days remaining. The clock is ticking. 62 days remaining. Don't disappoint us. Each message is a reminder that we're not the hunters here. We're still the prey, and we're running out of time. On week 5, my mother's transformation is complete. "Look at this," she says, pulling up a website on her laptop. Dr. Patricia Morrison, independent art authentication consultant. 20 years of experience. Credentials from Columbia University. Published articles in Art History Quarterly and the Burlington Magazine. Specializing in Dutch Golden Age works, with particular expertise in Vermeer authentication. I scroll through the site. It's professional, polished, completely convincing. There are photos of my mother, aged up with grey hair and subtle makeup, wearing designer glasses and conservative suits, examining paintings in what appear to be museums and private collections. "How did you—" "David has contacts," she says simply. "We staged the photos in galleries he has access to. The articles are real. I wrote them under this pseudonym, and David helped place them in legitimate journals. The credentials are real. Everything about a Dr. Morrison is real, except that she's actually me. And Volkov will believe it. Why wouldn't he? I am an expert. I really do have a master's from Columbia. I really can authenticate a Vermeer. We're not lying about my qualifications. We're just lying about my intentions. It's a fine distinction, but an important one. That same week, the rumors begin to circulate in Volkov's world. David plants them carefully, working through intermediaries and anonymous tips. A forged Vermeer discovered in a Singapore collection. Questions raised about the provenance of several Dutch Golden Age works. Whispers about a master forger operating out of Eastern Europe, flooding the market with convincing fakes. We track the spread of these rumors through art world publications and gossip columns. We watch as they reach Volkov's circles, see them discussed in forums where collectors trade information and concerns. And we wait for him to take the bait. On week 6, my father finishes the forgery. He calls us all into his makeshift studio, and there on the easel is a perfect reproduction of Vermeer's young woman reading a letter at an open window. The same luminous light, the same delicate rendering of fabric and skin, the same sense of intimate quiet that characterizes Vermeer's work. It's beautiful. I breathe. It's not perfect, my father says critically. The craquelure, the pattern of cracks in the varnish that can't be truly replicated in 6 weeks. It takes decades for that to develop naturally. But I've simulated it as best I can, and in a cursory examination should pass. What about scientific testing? David asks. If Volkov eventually has it analyzed? The pigments are period accurate. I sourced them from the same suppliers that conservation labs use for restoration work. The canvas is genuinely old. I found it at an estate sale. A damaged 19th century painting that I stripped down to the base layer. The rabbit skin glue, the chalk ground, the varnish, all created using historical methods. It won't pass carbon dating, but it'll fool any examination that doesn't involve actual laboratory testing. And how long before Volkov might do laboratory testing? I ask. Years, hopefully. Maybe never. Rich collectors don't usually do scientific analysis on pieces they believe are genuine. They only do that when they have a reason to doubt. And we're going to give him every reason to believe his painting is real. My mother comes to stand beside my father, studying the forgery. You still have it, she says softly. After all these years, you still have the gift. He takes her hand. I just hope it's enough. On week 7, we get the response we've been waiting for. David intercepts a communication from Volkov to one of his art advisors. He's heard the rumors about the forged Vermeers, and he wants his piece authenticated. But he doesn't trust his usual experts. He's paranoid that some of them might be compromised. He wants an independent specialist, someone with no connection to his existing network. Someone, his advisor suggests, like Dr. Patricia Morrison. We're in, David says, showing us the communication. Volkov's people are going to reach out to Dr. Morrison this week. Mum, you need to be ready. My mother is already in character, adjusting her glasses and straightening her posture in that subtle way that makes her seem older, more professorial. I'm ready. The call comes 2 days later. A crisp-voiced assistant explains that Mr. Volkov is seeking authentication services for a significant piece in his collection. and would Dr. Morrison be available for a consultation? My mother, as Dr. Morrison, is professional, slightly aloof, and very expensive. She quotes a fee that makes me wince. But the assistant doesn't hesitate. They schedule a preliminary meeting for the following week at Volkov's Connecticut estate. After the call ends, my mother lets out a long breath. "It's happening," she says. "It's really happening." "We still need to get you in and out safely," David reminds her. The examination itself is just one part of this. We need to plan the logistics, the timing, the backup protocols. We have one shot at this. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, my father says firmly. We've done this before. We can do it again. But I see the fear in his eyes, because doing this before was 25 years ago, when the stakes were money and reputation, not his daughter's life. Now everything is different. Now failure means I die. The day of the examination arrives cold and grey. Early December weather that matches my mood. My mother is transformed completely into Dr. Patricia Morrison. The grey hair, the expensive but conservative suit, the subtle makeup that adds 10 years, and an air of academic authority. She's carrying a briefcase containing specialized equipment, magnifying glasses, ultraviolet light, samples for pigment analysis, all of which David acquired through his mysterious network of contacts. And hidden in a secret compartment at the bottom of that briefcase is my father's forgery, rolled carefully in acid-free paper. "You remember the protocol?" David asks for the 10th time as we sit in the surveillance van parked 3 blocks from Volkov's estate. "I remember," my mother says calmly. "I go in as Dr. Morrison. I examine the Vermeer using standard authentication techniques, which gives me legitimate reason to handle it extensively. At approximately 20 minutes into the examination, I'll request time alone with the piece, standard procedure for detailed analysis. That's when I make the switch. Total examination time, 45 minutes. Then I thank Volkov, explain I'll have my full report within a week, and leave." "And if something goes wrong?" I ask. "Then I abort. I make an excuse, need different equipment, want to consult with a colleague, whatever makes sense in the moment, and I leave without making the switch. We lose the opportunity, but we don't lose our lives." "What if they search your briefcase?" I press. "I can't help it. I'm terrified." "They won't. I'm a respected expert coming at their invitation. And even if they do, the forgery is hidden in a compartment that looks like part of the case's structure. They'd have to take it apart to find it." My mother reaches back from the front seat and takes my hand. "Riley, sweetheart, I know you're sad. I'm scared too. But we've planned this down to the smallest detail. Trust the plan. Trust me. I want to. God, I want to. Mom, My voice breaks. "If something happens to you, nothing is going to happen to me. Your father will never forgive me if I don't come back to him." She smiles, tries to keep it light. "Besides, someone has to make sure you eat vegetables." It's such a mum thing to say that I actually laugh, even through my fear. David checks his watch. "It's time. You'll be wired the whole time. We can't communicate with you once you're inside. Too risky. But we'll hear everything. If you need help, if something goes wrong, say the phrase, 'I need to reschedule this appointment,' and we'll come in." "Understood." My mother gets out of the van, adjusts her jacket, and becomes Dr. Patricia Morrison. I watch her walk toward Volkov's estate, briefcase in hand, every inch the confident expert. And then she disappears through the security gate, and all David and I can do is listen. The wire transmits perfectly. We hear my mother being greeted by Volkov's assistant, hear the echo of their footsteps through marble hallways, hear the codes being entered into security panels as they make their way deeper into the estate. "This is a magnificent home, Mr. Volkov," my mother says, her voice different, more formal, with just a hint of an academic's careful enunciation. "Have you lived here long?" 15 years? Volkov's voice is accented, educated, carrying the confidence of extreme wealth. "I acquired it specifically for the security features. One cannot be too careful with a collection of this value." "Indeed. I appreciate your caution in seeking authentication. It's always better to verify." More footsteps. The sound of another door opening, asane, another security code. "Here we are? My private gallery." I imagine what my mother is seeing. A temperature-controlled room, sophisticated lighting, paintings worth millions of dollars, arranged on the walls like trophies. "Remarkable," my mother murmurs. "Is that a Rembrandt?" "You have a good eye." "Yes, one of his earlier portraits." They make small talk about the collection as my mother sets up her equipment. I'm gripping the edge of my seat in the van, barely breathing. "Finally, and this is the Vermeer you'd like me to examine?" "Yes." Young woman reading a letter at an open window. "I acquired it approximately 25 years ago from a private seller. The provenance was unverifiable, which is part of why I'm concerned about recent forgery rumors." Of course, the provenance is unverifiable, I think. My parents stole it. "Well, let's see what we can determine." The sound of my mother opening her briefcase, taking out equipment. "I'll need to examine it under various types of light. Take some pigment samples, nothing invasive, just surface traces, and study the brush techniques. This will take approximately 45 minutes. I hope that's acceptable." "Take all the time you need, Dr. Morrison. I'll have my assistant bring you anything you require." "Actually, doll," my mother says, and my heart starts pounding. For the detailed analysis portion, I prefer to work alone. It requires intense concentration, and I find I'm more accurate without distractions. Would you be comfortable with that?" A pause. A long pause. "My security team will need to remain in the room," Volkov says finally. Shit. David and I exchange a look. This isn't part of the plan. If there are guards in the room during the sitch, she'll never be able to pull it off. "I understand your concern," my mother says smoothly, "but I must insist. My reputation rests on the integrity of my examinations. I cannot risk any perception that my assessment was influenced or observed by interested parties. If you're uncomfortable with that, I can certainly recommend another expert." "No." Volkov's response is quick. "No, I want you specifically. Your articles on Vermeer authentication are the most thorough I've seen." "Very well. I'll have the guards wait outside, but the security cameras will remain active." "Of course. I would expect nothing less." Footsteps. The door opening and closing. Then silence. "She's alone," David murmurs. "She has to work around the cameras." We listen as my mother narrates her examination, partially for the recording devices, partially to give us an update on her progress. Initial visual inspection confirms characteristic Vermeer techniques. The use of camera obscura is evident in the precise rendering of light and shadow. The pigments appear consistent with the 17th century materials. Moving to ultraviolet analysis. 5 minutes pass, 10, 15, interesting. There's evidence of overpaint in the lower left corner, which is consistent with documented restoration work from the 1960s. The craquelure pattern is appropriate for the age. Now I need to examine the canvas backing. This is it. The moment when she'll flip the painting to access the back. When she'll need to make the switch without the camera seeing. 20 minutes, 25. Canvas weave is consistent with Dutch textile production circa 1650 to 1670. The frame is likely period appropriate based on the joinery techniques. I'm going to need to photograph some of these details for my report. The sound of camera clicks. Then rustling. Her moving around the room, repositioning her equipment, creating blind spots in the security camera. Coverage through the natural movements of her work. 30 minutes. Then I'm concerned about some humidity exposure on the lower edge. I need to examine this more closely with my magnification equipment. More rustling. More movement. The subtle sounds of paper being unrolled. Of something being carefully positioned. And then nothing. Just the ambient hum of the gallery's climate control system. 35 minutes. 40. The door opens. Dr. Morrison? Is everything all right? Yes, perfectly fine. My mother's voice is steady, cheerful. Just finishing up my photographic documentation. I should have my preliminary report to you within 48 hours, with the full analysis complete by next week. And your initial assessment? Based on my examination, I can say with reasonable confidence that this is a genuine Vermeer. The techniques, materials, and aging are all consistent with the artist's known works from this period. I'll need to complete my laboratory analysis of the pigment samples to be certain, but I see no immediate red flags. That's wonderful news. Volkov sounds genuinely relieved. You have no idea what a weight that is off my mind. I understand completely. Collecting at this level always involves some degree of uncertainty. I'm glad I could provide reassurance. More pleasantries. Footsteps moving away from the gallery. The sound of my mother being escorted back through the security checkpoints and out of the house. David and I are silent, waiting, not daring to celebrate until she's safely out of the estate. Finally, we see her walking toward the van. Same measured pace, same professional demeanor. She gets in, closes the door, and we drive the way at a normal speed, obeying all traffic laws, looking like any other vehicle leaving this wealthy neighborhood. We drive for 10 minutes without speaking. Then David pulls into a parking lot behind a closed restaurant, and my mother finally lets herself relax. Her hands are shaking as she opens the briefcase and shows us what's inside. Or rather, what isn't inside. The secret compartment is empty. The forgery is gone. Which means the original Vermeer, the painting my parents stole 25 years ago, is now rolled up in acid-free paper at the bottom of my mother's briefcase. Holy shit, I breathe. You did it. You actually did it. My mother starts laughing, a slightly hysterical sound. The cameras, got the cameras. I had to position my body to block the view while I made the switch. And I was so sure someone was going to notice, was going to see that I was deliberately creating a blind spot. But they didn't, David says. And he's smiling, really smiling for the first time since I've known him. You pulled it off, perfectly. We still need to get it authenticated ourselves, my mother reminds us, professional again. We need to be able to prove to Marcus and Sarah that this is the real painting, not another forgery. And we need to set up the exchange. But yes, we did the impossible part. We actually stole the same painting twice. She pulls out her phone, the burner David gave her, and calls my father. David, we got it. Well, we got the painting. I can hear his whoop of joy, even from where I'm sitting. Come back to the safe house, he says, carefully, taking all the precautions. And then we'll figure out the next step. We drive back to Edina in silence, but it's a different kind of silence than before. Not fearful or tense, but almost triumphant. We did something impossible, and now we need to finish it. Back at the safe house, we spread the painting out on the dining table, and even rolled up and travel-worn. It's breathtaking. Vermeer, my father says softly, studying his own forgery that's now hanging in Volkov's gallery, while the original lies here in our temporary headquarters. I'd forgotten how incredible his work was. The way he captures light, the intimacy of the moment. This is why we got into this business in the first place. Not for the money, for the art. The money was nice too, my mother says dryly. But she's also gazing at the painting with something like reverence. Now what? I ask. We have the painting. We have proof it's genuine. We stole it ourselves from the same place. How do we hand it over to Marcus and Sarah without walking into a trap? We don't hand it over, David says. We all turn to look at him. What do you mean? My father asks. I mean, we've done what they demanded. We stole the Vermeer. We proved we still have the skills, the connections, the ability to pull off an impossible job. But we did it on our terms, and now we're going to end this on our terms. David pulls up his laptop and starts typing. Marcus and Sarah have been operating under the assumption that they have all the power. They threatened Riley. They set their deadline. They've been pulling the strings for months. But they made a mistake. What mistake? I ask. They underestimated your parents. And they underestimated me. He turns the laptop so we can see what he's been working on. I've spent the last 6 weeks doing more than just helping with the heist. I've been investigating Marcus and Sarah, tracking their movements, their communications, their finances. And I found something interesting. On the screen are bank records, phone logs, travel itineraries. Marcus Hale has been in contact with a collector in Dubai, Rashid Al-Mansouri, oil money, compulsive art hoarder with a reputation for dealing in stolen works. And Sarah Chen has been consulting with a smuggling operation that specializes in moving high-value items across international borders without triggering customs alerts. The implications sink in slowly. They're not planning to return the Vermeer to a rightful owner or turn it over to authorities, my mother says. They're planning to sell it themselves. Exactly. They forced us to do the risky part, the actual theft, while they stay clean. Once they have the painting, they'll fence it to Al-Mansouri for probably $10 million. Split 2 ways, that's $5 million each. Not bad for a few months of blackmail and threats. So what do we do? My father asks. David smiles, and it's not a nice smile. We give them what they want, but not in the way they expect. He lays out the plan over the next hour. We'll contact Marcus and Sarah and tell them we have the Vermeer. We'll arrange an exchange for January 10th, 5 days before their deadline, which shows we're compliant and eager to end this. The location will be neutral ground, a storage facility outside Minneapolis that David has already secured, one with limited surveillance and multiple exit points. But we won't give them the real painting. We have a forgery, I say slowly, understanding dawning. Dad's forgery, the one that's currently hanging in Volkov's gallery. Not that one, my father corrects. That one needs to stay there until Volkov eventually discovers the switch, which hopefully won't be for years. But I can make another forgery. I have 3 weeks. It won't be as perfect as the first one. I can't source all the same materials again. But it'll be good enough to fool a quick examination. And by the time Marcus and Sarah discover it's fake, it'll be too late. Too late how? My mother asks. David leans back, looking satisfied. Because while they're examining their new acquisition, I'll be making a call. To the FBI, specifically to the art crime team, with detailed information about Marcus Hale and Sarah Chen's plan to sell a stolen Vermeer to Rashid al-Mansouri, including dates, times, communication records, and the location of the exchange. I'm starting to smile. You're going to set them up? They set themselves up. I'm just providing the FBI with the evidence they need to make arrests. And once Marcus and Sarah are in custody, facing charges for conspiracy to commit art theft, attempted sale of stolen property, and extortion, they won't be in a position to threaten Riley anymore. My father finishes. Even if they eventually make bail, they'll be under constant surveillance. They'll be too busy defending themselves to come after us. And the real Vermeer? My mother asks. What happens to it? David looks at her steadily. That's up to you. You can return it anonymously to Volkov. You can donate it to a museum. You can keep it. That's not my call to make. My parents are quiet for a long moment, looking at the painting on the table. We'll return it, my father finally says. Anonymously, through a third party, no way to trace it back to us. It should be in a museum somewhere, not hidden in a vault or locked in our attic. That's what was wrong with stealing it in the first place. This kind of beauty should be shared. You've gotten philosophical in your old age, my mother says gently. I've gotten wise. There's a difference. The next 3 weeks are tense. My father works around the clock creating the second forgery, this one using faster methods and more modern materials. It won't fool any serious authentication, but for a quick visual inspection in a dim storage unit, it should be sufficient. David coordinates with his FBI contacts, feeding them information gradually, so it looks like they discovered Marcus and Sarah's scheme through their own investigation, not through a tip-off that could potentially expose my parents' involvement. My mother drafts the report for Volkov, certifying that his Vermeer is genuine. She sends it under Dr. Morrison's name, billing him an obscene amount of money that he pays without question. As far as he knows, he's been reassured that his prized painting is real. It'll be years before anyone discovers the truth. And I wait, still trapped in the safe house, still cut off from my normal life, still wondering if this plan will actually work or if we're all about to be arrested. The weekly messages from Marcus and Sarah continue. 34 days remaining. We're getting impatient. 27 days remaining. Time to make arrangements. 20 days remaining. Final countdown begins. Finally, with 2 weeks left before the deadline, my father sends a message to the anonymous email address Marcus and Sarah have been using. "We have it. Let's make the exchange." The reply comes within an hour. January the 10th, 11 o'clock p.m. Storage facility at 4782 Industrial Drive. Come alone. Bring the painting, any tricks, any games, and Riley dies. This is your only chance. They're confident, David observes, reading over my father's shoulder. Probably too confident. That works in our favor. And the FBI? My mother asks. They'll be ready. They'll have a team positioned a quarter mile away. Once Marcus and Sarah accept the painting and reveal their plan to fence it, the agents move in. 15 minutes maximum from handoff to arrest. 15 minutes where we're face to face with people who've threatened to kill our daughter, my father says. 15 minutes where anything could go wrong. Which is why Riley stays here, my mother says firmly. She doesn't come to the exchange. She stays in the safe house with armed security, and she doesn't leave until we confirm Marcus and Sarah are in custody. I want to argue. I want to be there and to see this through to the end. To look Marcus and Sarah in the eyes when they realize they've been outsmarted. But I'm also terrified, so I nod. I'll stay. January 10th arrives cold and clear. The kind of night where your breath fogs in the air and the stars are sharp as broken glass. I'm in the safe house with David's colleague, a former Marine named Jackson who doesn't speak much, but carries a gun with the ease of someone who knows how to use it. We're watching a live feed from David's phone, a camera positioned to show the interior of the storage unit from a hidden angle. My parents arrive at 10:45 p.m., 15 minutes early. They're carrying a tube that supposedly contains the Vermeer, though it's actually the forgery. The storage facility is deserted at this hour. Just rows of anonymous units lit by harsh overhead lights. They open the designated unit. David rented it under a false name 2 weeks ago, and wait inside. My father checks his watch, checks it again. Where are they? My mother murmurs, as if in answer. Headlights sweep across the parking lot. A car pulls up, parks at an angle that blocks the nearest exit. 2 people get out. Sarah Chen, Marcus Hale. Even through the grainy camera feed, I recognize them. Sarah looks exactly like my former roommate. Petite, dark hair. A face that can shift from friendly to calculating in a heartbeat. Marcus is distinguished and silver-haired, wearing an expensive coat, looking like someone who serves on non-profit boards and plays golf at country clubs. They're both monsters. They walk to the storage unit, and my father steps out to meet them. My mother stays inside, protecting the painting. David, Patricia. Marcus smiles, and it doesn't reach his eyes. It's been a long time. 25 years. My father says flatly. You could have just asked for help, Marcus, son. You didn't need to threaten our daughter. Asked for help? Marcus laughs. You walked away from the crew. You abandoned us. You took your money and your happy family and left Sarah and me to fend for ourselves. You think I was going to politely ask you to come out of retirement? We all took the same cut. My mother says from inside the unit. We all agreed to disband. You're rewriting history, Marcus. History is written by the victors. And tonight, we're the victors. He nods to Sarah. Check the painting. Sarah enters the storage unit, and I watch as she carefully unrolls the forgery, examining it with a practiced eye. She uses a small flashlight, studies the brushstrokes, tests the canvas texture. My heart is pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears. It's good, Sarah says, finally. Really good. Is this the original one, or did you pull a switch? It's the original. My father lies smoothly. We stole it from Volkov's estate 3 weeks ago. You can verify the provenance if you want. We will. Marcus steps forward, confident now. Once it's in Dubai with our buyer, Al-Mansouri has his own experts. Dubai, my mother repeats. You're fencing it to Al-Mansouri. You're going to make what? 10 million? 15? 12, actually. Which, split 2 ways, will set Sarah and me up very nicely. Retirement in the Maldives, perhaps. Somewhere warm, far from extradition treaties. You won't get away with this, my father says. We already have. Marcus nods to Sarah, who rolls up the painting and secures it in its tube. You delivered the painting. We're going to our buyer. And Riley lives. Everyone gets what they want. Well, except for Volkov, I suppose. But he's been sitting on a stolen painting for 25 years. I don't think he gets to complain. There's one thing you forgot, my father says quietly. Marcus pauses. What's that? We're not the same people we were 25 years ago. We learned from our mistakes. We got smarter. And we made friends in useful places. Marcus's expression shifts, wariness creeping in. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the FBI art crime team that's been tracking your communications with Al-Mansouri for the past 6 weeks. I'm talking about the federal agents positioned a quarter mile from here, waiting for my signal. I'm talking about the fact that you just confessed, on camera. My father points to where David's hidden device is recording everything. To conspiracy to commit art theft, extortion, and attempted sale of stolen property. The color drains from Marcus's face. Sarah drops the tube. You're bluffing. Am I? My mother pulls out her phone. David, they're all yours. Even through the camera feed, I can hear the sirens. Marcus and Sarah freeze, then bolt in opposite directions. Sarah runs toward the car, but it's blocked by an SUV that suddenly appeared, blocking the exit. Marcus sprints between storage units, but men in FBI windbreakers are already closing in from multiple directions. It's over in less than 2 minutes. I watch as Marcus and Sarah are handcuffed, read their rights, searched. I watch as FBI agents carefully secure the tube containing the forgery, evidence for the prosecution. I watch as my parents give their statements to the lead agent, a woman named Chen who David apparently knows from previous cases. Are they going to arrest Mom and Dad too? I ask Jackson. Nah. He's still watching the screen intently. They're cooperating witnesses. Turned over evidence of Marcus and Sarah's scheme. Far as the FBI knows, your parents are former consultants who got pulled back into the art theft world against their will. They're victims here, not perpetrators. It's not entirely true, but it's not entirely false either. My parents were victims of Marcus and Sarah's blackmail. The FBI doesn't need to know about their history as thieves, doesn't need to know that the original Vermeer theft was their work. Sometimes justice is messy. Sometimes the guilty go free so that the more guilty can be punished. On screen, I watch as Marcus is loaded into one FBI vehicle and Sarah into another. They're shouting at each other, blaming each other, already falling apart now that their plan has collapsed. My father and mother stand together in the parking lot, holding hands, looking older and more tired than I've ever seen them. But they're safe. We're all safe. 3 days later, we're back in Duluth. The FBI has what they need from us. Statements, testimony, evidence of Marcus and Sarah's threats and plans. Agent Chen assured us that with the recordings, the communications evidence, and the attempted sale to Al Mansouri, the prosecution has an airtight case. Marcus and Sarah are looking at decades in federal prison. What about the painting? I asked her. The one they had when you arrested them? It's being authenticated by our experts, she said. We'll verify it's the Vermeer stolen from Volkov in 1998, and then we'll return it to him. These things take time. Could be months before it's all resolved. But eventually, he'll get his painting back. Except he won't. He'll get my father's forgery, which the FBI experts will eventually discover isn't genuine. But by then, the trail will be so confused. Was Marcus and Sarah's painting a forgery they created? Did someone else switch it? Where is the real Vermeer? That investigators will chase their tails for years without finding answers. And the real Vermeer? We're dealing with that now. My parents and I sit in their living room overlooking Lake Superior, the original painting spread out on the coffee table between us. Even here, in the ordinary space of my childhood home, it's magnificent. We could keep it, my mother says softly. Hide it away. It's not like anyone knows we have it. We'd know, my father says. And after everything we've put Riley through, I can't live with any more secrets. I won't. So we return it, I say. But how? We can't exactly mail it to Volkov with a note saying sorry about the 25-year delay. We could arrange an anonymous donation to a museum, my mother suggests, through several layers of intermediaries. Let the museum deal with verifying its authenticity and negotiating with Volkov about ownership. Or, David says, he's been sitting quietly in the corner, observing. We could make one last play. We all turn to look at him. Volkov thinks he has the real Vermeer hanging in his vault. Eventually, maybe years from now, he'll discover it's a forgery. When that happens, he's going to be furious. He's going to blame the authentication expert who told him it was genuine. Dr. Patricia Morrison, my mother says slowly. Who doesn't actually exist, David continues. But what if she did? What if, before that forgery is discovered, Dr. Morrison reaches out to Volkov with a confession? What if she tells him that after her examination, she's had concerns, done additional research, and believes his painting may have been switched during a recent security breach at his estate? He'll check, my father says. He'll have his own experts examine it, and they'll discover it's a forgery. Right. And he'll be grateful to Morrison for bringing this to his attention. Grateful enough to pay her consulting fee for helping him recover the original. I'm starting to smile. We sell him back his own painting. Not sell. authenticate and facilitate its recovery. Dr. Morrison will explain that through her network of sources, she's located the stolen original. It's being held by parties who wish to remain anonymous, but they're willing to return it for a finder's fee, say $500,000, which is a bargain compared to the painting's value. Volkov pays the fee, the painting is returned through a secure courier, and everyone walks away happy. Except we're making $500,000 off a painting we stole in the first place, I point out. Think of it as delayed payment for the original job, David says dryly, plus interest. My parents look at each other. One of those long married couple conversations that happens entirely without words. Finally, my mother nods. Let's do it, one last job. And then we're really, truly done. We're already done, my father corrects. This is just cleaning up the mess. It takes 6 weeks to set up. David coordinates everything through encrypted communications and anonymous accounts. Dr. Patricia Morrison reaches out to Volkov, expresses her concerns, suggests he have the painting re-examined. Volkov does. His experts confirm it's a forgery, and he's both furious and panicked. Dr. Morrison then reveals that she has sources in the art underworld who've heard rumors about the stolen original. She can facilitate its return, but there will be a finder's fee. Volkov, desperate to recover his prized Vermeer, agrees immediately. The exchange happens in March, through so many intermediaries and middlemen that no one involved can trace it back to us. The Vermeer is delivered to a secure courier, authenticated by Volkov's experts, who confirm it's genuine this time, and returned to his vault with upgraded security measures. Dr. Morrison receives her finder's fee, which is immediately laundered through several accounts before being split 4 ways. My parents, David, and me. I don't want the money, I tell them when David explains the division. I didn't earn it. I was just collateral damage. You were the reason we did any of this, my mother says firmly. You were the reason we came out of retirement, the reason we risked everything. That money is yours. Use it for something good. Start a foundation. Fund arts education. I don't care, but take it. So I do. I take the money and I use it to start a grant program for young artists who can't afford formal training. It's a small operation, just me and a part-time administrator, but we fund 20 students in our first year. 20 kids who might not otherwise have had the chance to develop their talents. I name it the Morrison Foundation, after my mother's alias. She cries when I tell her. 2 years later, I'm back in my apartment in Minneapolis. A different apartment. I couldn't stay in the old one after everything that happened. In a building with a better security and a doorman who actually pays attention. It's 9:47 p.m. and my phone rings. I smile because I know who it is before I answer. Hi, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. How are you? I'm good. Just got home from a gallery opening. One of our grant recipients had her first show. That's wonderful. My mother's voice is warm, genuine. How was it? Beautiful. She's got real talent. I think she's going somewhere. We chat for a while about normal things. About the weather, about my work, about how my father's vegetable garden is doing, about the cruise they're planning for next month, about my cousin's wedding, about whether I've met anyone interesting lately. Normal parent-child conversation. And then, almost casually, my mother asks, "Are you alone?" I pause, but not because I'm afraid, because I know what she's really asking. She's asking if I'm safe, if I'm okay, if her daughter is living the life she deserves after being dragged into a nightmare not of her making. Actually, no, I say. I'm with someone. His name is James. We met at a fundraiser last month. He's coming over for dinner. It's true. James is in my kitchen right now, attempting to cook pasta while I take this call. And earlier today, he asked if I wanted to make plans for next weekend, which in the language of modern dating means he's thinking this might be serious. Oh? My mother's voice lifts with genuine interest. Tell me about him. So I do. I tell her about James, who works in architecture and volunteers at a literacy program and makes me laugh. I tell her about the Morrison Foundation and the kids we're helping. I tell her about my life, which is complicated and messy and beautiful in all the ways lives are supposed to be. And my mother listens and asks questions and sounds happy, because I'm not alone. And after everything we've been through, that's what matters. I never told James about my parents' past. I never told my friends about those terrifying months when I lived in a safe house and helped plan a heist. As far as anyone in my current life knows, I had a family emergency in the fall of 2025, took some time off work, and came back stronger. It's not exactly a lie. Sometimes I think about Marcus and Sarah, serving their sentences in separate federal prisons. I think about how they thought they were so clever, using me as leverage, forcing my parents back into a life they'd left behind. They didn't understand that revenge is a dish best served cold, or that the people you underestimate are often the ones who end up outsmarting you. My parents taught me that, not through words or lectures, but through action. They showed me that love means protecting your family at any cost. That intelligence isn't just about being smart. It's about being strategic. That sometimes the right choice and the legal choice aren't the same thing, and you have to be willing to live with the grey areas. They also taught me that your past doesn't define you, but it shapes you. They were art thieves. They broke the law. They took things that didn't belong to them. But they were also my parents. They loved me. They sacrificed everything to keep me safe. People are complicated. The world is complicated. And sometimes, justice looks like a forgery hanging in a billionaire's vault, while the original hangs in the National Gallery, where anyone can see it. Donated anonymously by a benefactor who believed that beauty should be shared. 3 years after it all ended, I get an email. It's from an anonymous account. No subject line, just a single sentence. The snow falls in Moscow the same way it fell in Minneapolis that winter. Some things are universal. There's an attachment. A photo. I open it, and my hands start shaking. It's Sarah, standing in what looks like a Russian airport, no longer in prison orange, but dressed in expensive clothes, smiling at the camera. Free. The email is a message, a threat, a reminder that this isn't over, that she somehow got out, that she hasn't forgotten. I should be terrified. Instead, I forward the email to David. His response comes within minutes. On it. Give me 48 hours. 2 days later, I get another email from David. This one contains a news article from a Russian publication, translated into English, about an American woman arrested in Moscow attempting to smuggle art across the border. About how she's now in a Russian prison where extradition is unlikely and conditions are challenging. She should have stayed in US custody, David's note says. At least she had a release date. This is going to take longer to resolve. I don't ask how he arranged it. I don't want to know. I just delete both emails, pour myself a glass of wine, and go back to reviewing grant applications for the Morrison Foundation. Because I learned something else from my parents during those terrifying months. When someone threatens your family, you don't just defend yourself. You make sure they can never threaten anyone again. The phone rings at 9:47 p.m. Hi, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. How are you? I'm great, actually. Really great. Are you alone? I look across my apartment at James, who's reading on the couch, his feet in my lap, completely at home in this space we're starting to share. No, I say, smiling. I'm not alone. Good, my mother says, and I can hear her smile too. That's good, baby. That's exactly how it should be. We talk for a while longer. About nothing and everything. About the ordinary, beautiful details of life that we almost lost, but somehow managed to keep. And when we hang up, I don't think about art theft, or blackmail, or those terrifying weeks in the safe house. I just think about how lucky I am to have parents who would risk everything for me, to have learned that strength comes in unexpected forms, to have survived something that should have broken me, but instead made me braver, smarter, more aware of how precious and fragile and worth fighting for the people we love really are. The phone calls continue every night at 9:47 p.m. But now I understand what they really mean. They're not checking if I'm safe from external threats. They're checking if I'm living the life they fought so hard to give me. If I'm surrounded by people who care. If I'm happy. And the answer, every time, is yes. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty about how it all ended. About the fact that my parents got away with art theft. Twice. About the fact that we profited from returning a painting we stole in the first place. About the morally grey choices we made in the name of survival and justice. But then I remember what Marcus said in that storage unit. History is written by the victors. We won. Not just the heist, not just our freedom, but something bigger. We won our lives back. We won the right to move forward without fear. We won the knowledge that when everything fell apart, we had each other. And we won the lesson that justice isn't always served through courts and laws and systems designed centuries ago by people who never imagined situations like ours. Sometimes justice is a forged painting hanging in a vault, while the original inspires thousands of museum visitors. Sometimes justice is two blackmailers in prison, paying for their crimes. Sometimes justice is a family reunited, stronger for what they survived. Sometimes justice is quiet and elegant and achieved through truth, framed as necessary action, not destruction. My parents taught me that. And every night at 9:47 p.m., when my mother asks if I'm alone, I remember everything that question really means. It means, are you safe? It means, are you loved? It means, was everything we did worth it? And the answer is always the same. No, Mom. I'm not alone. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Because that's the truth they fought to give me. That's the life they stole for. And it's a masterpiece.